Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced and welcome to my podcast. This is me posted on my opinion and my tech podcast feed because it's both. It's opinion and tech. And what I want to talk about today is AI music because I feel like some recent things happened that have made AI music more of a lightning rod of a topic. Now, I'll start backwards, or I'll start with what recently is happening that's making this a topic and then kind of go through just sort of my long opinion on the subject. So recently, there is a Instagram TikToker by the name of Saxboy Billy. What he does is he goes on vacation to places. And then when he goes on vacation to places, he takes notes and then generates an AI song. Okay, I'm not sure exactly whether he... Well, probably is using Suno to generate the song itself. I have a Suno account. I love Suno. I'm also someone who's played guitar, written songs, played other instruments. So... wanted to be a rock star at some point. But then what happened was he did a video about Puerto Rico. So he did a trip to Puerto Rico. He generated the song, whatnot. And that one in particular was really, really catchy. Like the AI generated song it felt like sort of like a late 80s, early 90s. When I think about it, like it kind of makes me think of the song like Electric Avenue, that kind of vibe. It was just it's just a kind of a very sort of happy bop. It's a banger, okay? It's the first time I've seen where like an AI song goes viral. Most people just heard the song, they enjoyed it, and people started making like their TikToks on it, and they still are. And then I'd go back and like look at these TikToks, realizing it's an AI song, because if you've played with like Suno and AI music, you can tell. It's just like AI generated images. Like if you work with AI, you can tell what something is AI. There's just certain nuances to it that wouldn't exist generally in something that's more human made. Whether it's too much detail, too little detail, sort of weird details, a certain sort of kind of common quality regardless of the style. There's just a certain sort of, there's certain markers that I just kind of give away again, which is why it's important to embrace and engage with AI, because the more you engage with AI, the easier it is to recognize when something is AI or isn't AI. So I'm generally not someone who's don't AI. I consider myself sort of an AI evangelist, if anything. Okay. So that's the story. So basically, I'll go to the comments for these things, and it's always this interesting sort of like where people are just like enjoying the video. It's like it's oftentimes just, someone with their family just having fun with this song, okay, creating something new, okay, the new TikTok, the new Instagram reel. They're creating something new. Yes, the song is AI, but everyone's creating something new out of it, which is really nice. And even some musicians have now covered the song where they've just said, hey, you know what, here's a non-AI version of it, which is... To me, seeing musicians now cover AI music and turn it into something, make interesting variations on it, is just a whole, to me, in itself, is a really interesting thing. But people get really angry when they realize it's AI. They're like, oh, how dare you make just TikTok with an AI song? And I just feel like a lot of people are, at least the stated reasons for anger are wrong. At the end of the day, like, are there reasons for anger? Yes, but they're not going to be the reasons that people are going to state up front, because people usually don't like to, people generally don't like to admit that, okay, hey, you're attacking, say, hey, you're attacking my livelihood, but, oftentimes most musicians' livelihood isn't the writing original music, whatnot. It's oftentimes being a touring musician, or making like custom songs for someone on Fiverr and whatnot. And it's oftentimes going to be like those people who are going to be most affected by AI, because those are sort of the less creative parts. It's the more like, hey, somebody needs a thing and I'm going to give them a thing. Kind of like if you're a chef, you're not making new burgers every day. Generally, when you're making your money is as like a sous chef. Most chefs are going to be making money as a sous chef. Not everyone's a creative chef off the bat or ever, and they're making their money recreating a burger that already exists over and over and over and over again. And the problem is, like, AI tends to be able to reproduce the things that have been reproduced in the past. Okay, so So that's really what it comes down to. So people are frustrated with like, okay, hey, it's the repetitive part where I can make money, and it's the repetitive part you're eliminating. Okay, because I mean, when I think about like the way I engage with music, it doesn't change my demand for like original songs by musicians. Because at the end of the day, like, well, I've played with Suno a lot. I've probably generated hundreds of songs. I'm not listening to them in the same way that I'm listening to, like, let's say, a Billy Joel or a Coheed and Cambria or a David Bowie or whatever. Music that I enjoy quite a bit. Daddy Frere. I listen to so much music, and right now a lot of it's escaping my brain. Or more recently, I've discovered this artist, Isaac Dunbar, who has a song that's just absolutely catchy, kind of like a weird sort of like Rockwell meets Prince meets the Rocky Horror Picture Show all in a song called Princess. But yeah, no. So like in the sense that like when I'm listening to music, when I'm engaging with art, I'm looking for the human expression, and like I enjoy it for the human expression. I enjoy it for like the human statement. And when I look at AI art, it can be that. I'll come back to that. But it generally, like, there's a difference between, I would say, like, AI art and AI slop. AI slop is just something like someone threw in a few sentences into an AI generator and something came out. And usually you can tell AI slop from something that had some thought put into it. And you can put some thought. Like, you can write I've done it where I'll write some really detailed prompts and not maybe even work through it. And use that as like do some really complicated things and end up with some really interesting things. But yeah, no, Suno is oftentimes really fun for like, hey, I want to generate like, hey, it's my buddy's birthday, and I want to generate like a custom song for them, and just show them that I'm thinking about them. And yes, there were people who made money doing like that. Okay, but again, like oftentimes like. That musician, that's not really what they do. They want to write their own songs and be famous for writing the songs or performing or whatnot. Oftentimes, like again, jingles. Well, there are people who are like really are an art of making a jingle, and again, those people are probably like the people who do what they're doing are gonna have a role. But I mean, again, like when I'm thinking like again, buying the custom birthday song or hey, a custom song for a proposal or something like that, like that is something where I can see, okay, hey, something like Suno is going to be, it's going to limit, sort of like really impact that market. Okay, and that's generally kind of how I've mostly used it. Okay, as far as like songs with like lyrics in a singer, just because generally oftentimes the vocals in an AI song, where they're a lot better than they were in a couple years ago, there's still this sort of, it's not quite, like it sounds pretty good. It's just like it just doesn't click with you. It doesn't connect with you in the same way. But also as someone who's dabbled as a musician. I mean, I used to be much more deeper into music once upon a time. But I recorded all these songs when I was young. There were songs that I really enjoyed. I was really proud of that I wrote. I recorded them. They weren't quality recordings. I never really had the time or the energy or the motivation to go sit there and pursue sort of like a higher quality recording of these songs, with the fancy production. And one of the things you can do in Suno is actually load a recording, like a recording of you singing, a recording of an old song. And that's what I did. I took my old songs, loaded them in there, and we're able to hear them in a variety of different genres with these full productions. And that made me excited to write songs again. That actually motivated me to be creative, because I know, hey, if I can write a song, record myself with guitar, writing a cool song, I can then hear, just hear sort of the fully realized version of it. And that's really cool. If you go to my Instagram, Alex Merced Coder, and scroll back, you can find some video clips where I post the original recordings of me singing and playing the song, and then the AI renditions. Like, that's actually really, really good, because it's still, the cool thing is that when you use the AI to generate like it from my recording, it's capturing like your vocal inflections and whatnot, and you do get a much better piece of music. Like, you actually get, I think, something that like I would listen to on a regular basis in that case. And I've heard some pretty cool covers. Like, I've heard some people who do like cover, like probably the most, my favorite thing I've done is I heard like a funk cover of Nickelback's This Is Why You Remind Me. Like, actually, I thought that was an AI cover, and that is actually something I would listen to more than once. But again, at the end of the day, it's like, it's not something I'm like seeking out per se. Like I'm not like saying, okay, hey, I don't want to listen to human music, and then human music does listen to different. There's a certain rawness to it. There's a certain imperfection to it. There's a certain emotion to it that's different. Same thing with, like, again, art. When I go to an art museum, there's a difference when I'm taking a look at something that was put together by a person versus AI art. And again, there is some shades of gray. Okay, you can create art leveraging AI. There are people who put a lot of thought into it. Okay, we'll do, again, really elaborate prompts. Sometimes they'll put it, you go through several different iterations where they'll generate an initial image, then maybe edit that image a little bit, and then, generate another image and then splice the two images together. There's this larger processes where basically the AI is no longer just, hey, I'm just quickly generating the end result. It's a step in a larger process that I think still ends up, is totally viable. And same thing with music, because with like Suno, you can generate like instrumentals and actually pull out the individual tracks for the instrumentals, which is no different than someone just buying a bunch, producers in the past buying sample packs with, sample bass lines, sample whatnot, using them for inspiration. It's just now they can just generate them on the fly versus, having to, buy these packs and wait for them to exist in a sense, or create their own samples. Okay. And again, the music industry has kind of constantly gone through this. I mean, if you go back to like, probably when you first started having the recording of music, I can imagine, there was this is not the same thing as having a live person playing the music at your local bar. How dare they put a jukebox in the bar? Okay. You're taking the jobs from, the local musician who would play a live rendition of all the popular songs of the day. I mean, that's the way it was. You'd sell sheet music, and then you'd have someone with a piano playing the songs pretty much everywhere. So you had like much more demand for piano. And again, it doesn't necessarily mean there was that much more demand. It just meant it cost that much more. Okay, so you basically, the access to it was less. Again, that's the thing I think people oftentimes miss when things become like more commoditized, is that it increases access. You have a new class of people that get access to more. In this case, you're going to have a new class of people that has access to maybe not the same level of expression, but a level of expression with AI that I think is worth recognizing. Okay, and democratizing access to, and then again, oftentimes, as much as I consider myself a creative, at the end of the day, like, when you put the highest barriers to access to expression, well, then the people who are able to also consume that expression are only the people who can afford to. Because, again, if it's really hard to create art, you need to charge a lot for that art, which means only certain people really ever get to enjoy it. Okay, you may say, hey, well, people can pay for the museum. But, I mean, oftentimes the art you see in museums are like the art of people who are long dead, and especially in the most affordable museums and galleries and things like that. Point is, like, there'll always be a market for the highest quality art. And that highest quality art will always be sort of inaccessible to the everyday person. And AI does make more accessible to more people in the same way that DAWs did, digital artist workstations where people could actually produce music. And how many people became bedroom music producers over the last 10, 20 years? Okay, how many producers do you think that people were thinking, well, this technology is making it easier and easier to basically turn their bedrooms into a music studio. It's going to ruin the business. And it's taking money out of our mouths. I mean, and yes, in a sense, it did democratize the way the money was distributed in the industry. Okay, no longer did you have these massive music labels that basically, gave pennies on the album to an artist, and only a few artists ever would even get signed. Again, so basically you'd have like, 1% of the artists that tried to go hit it big would actually get to a point that they can actually make a living off of it, because the labels were the gatekeepers, because the labels had to make these large capital investments to, build these studios, hire studio musicians, and hire a producer, and then, organize these tours, and hire all these A&R reps to go just find the right musicians, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so basically there's a huge cost to it. So basically, again, the access to having that life of being able to actually say, hey, you know what, I make a living doing music is no longer there. If anything, basically you ended up in the era where basically you started having like digital audio workstations, you started having digital distribution of music. Now musicians have to do a lot more work, but musicians were able to do that extra work where they can keep more, and then an artist could make a living doing music with an audience of, let's say, 1,000 to 50,000. Okay, if you have 50,000 loyal listeners willing to pay you $5 a month to get a new song every month, that can be enough money to support a band, and then they make extra money touring and some merchandise, and you can live off that. But and more bands can, and nowadays you have probably more musicians making a living off music than you ever did. Basically living comfortably off doing music without doing it at the huge scale that musicians would have to before. Basically you either were, it's a lot like sports, where basically you either were making nothing or you were making everything. Okay, and AI hasn't affected sports yet. That's an interesting thought, like how, because basically the difference is, while both are physical, playing music and playing a game are both physical, with a sport, the physical is the output, in a sense. Okay, and in a sense, to the extent that you can turn music into a sport and start having like musical leagues and musical competitions, which they exist. We've seen things like the Masked Singer and whatnot, but actually if you were to turn music into a sport, you could create a different market. The more my brain's starting to think about it, but at the end of the day, again, you see this. You always see this trend again, going from the player pianos to the jukeboxes to the local 4-track recorders and home digital music equipment, and being able to build home studios, and then being able to build bedroom studios and using digital audio workstations and being able to use sampling and synthesizers to be able to replicate sounds of instruments you don't have or can't play, but still need to know music theory and things like that, and whatnot. Yes, the barrier to entry, but at the end of the day, you still need to be someone who understands music and to create something really interesting and new. And even with Suno, it pretty much is like, if you ever actually use Suno, it's more than just, hey, I type in a thing and it makes a song. They're building it out to be pretty much a full digital audio workstation where you have multi-tracks and you can record your own vocals in there, and you can generate a single track as part of a recording, or part of music that you already started building yourself. You can do really interesting things with it, and then those who really embrace that are going to be able to do some really interesting, cool stuff. But yes, but did I ever pay another musician to just generate a song to go to celebrate my friend's birthday, or to just do a nice gesture? No. So it's not. I'm not spending money on things I never spent before. I still have my Spotify subscription. I still buy albums on iTunes, because again, that's just a different experience. And the Puerto Rico Song and its virality, at the end of the day, I did add the Puerto Rico Song to my Spotify playlist, and it's probably the first instance of that. But again, how many songs have been generated on Suno? And it's not the quality of the song that's the issue. Okay, I mean, I've heard plenty of other just generated songs of that sound quality, production quality, just like anything else. It was a roll of the dice, and that song was just particularly catchy. Okay, if you go back to Saxboy, I forget the full name, is, Instagram channel, he's been doing these videos for a while, and none of the other ones went viral. Not all of them are quite hit like that Puerto Rico song. But my point is, AI is a tool in the same way digital audio workstation is a tool. You can generate a full song with it, and then Google has now their thing. I haven't played with it yet. And you can generate songs. But oftentimes, and again, the same thing with a lot of AI stuff, you're oftentimes generating pieces of a bigger story. Again, with images, I don't generate, let me take a look around, if I have any exceptions. But no, and generally, if I take a look at the art hung around my house, it's all human-made art. Again, it's because it's just something interesting. There's something you're appreciating, saying, oh, look, someone made that. It's not just the visual, it's the process. But I also generate a lot of digital art for things like business cards or promotional images, marketing images, where the process isn't the thing that's being appreciated. It's the goal is to make a thing that achieves, like, you're not looking for the best thing in the world. You're looking for something that's good enough to achieve a result that has nothing to do with artistic expression or whatnot. Now now there is, I think, something legit to be said that, hey, everybody's art and music was part of the training and they didn't realize what was going to happen. But that's how things go. It's unfortunate, but again, this is not the first time in history these things happened, where basically innovation is based off understanding what people already know, being put to kind of like to a disadvantage. I mean, you can think of, this is not quite analogous, but you can think of something like Roy Kroc and, what he did to the McDonald's brothers. Okay. And again, that doesn't justify sort of like, oh, okay, hey, maybe, and if you understand how AI works, it would be like, how would you know what the right conversation is? Because the way vectors and all that stuff work, like, you wouldn't really know like who you're pulling what from. But in some sort of real mathematical, genuinely auditable way, you possibly could, but it doesn't seem very practical. But yeah, no, again, I think AI can be something that actually allows more people to do art. It can also just be something for people can generate, like a microwavable meal. Because there's microwavable meals doesn't mean there's no jobs for chefs. Okay, if anything, there's probably more work for chefs than there's ever been, despite the low margins for like restaurants and whatnot. Because there's other innovations that come along, like innovations like food trucks and ghost kitchens and things like that have now there's probably more chefs doing more innovative things with food than there's ever been. And the same thing when you can think of things like YouTube and live streaming and whatnot. And that's that's allowed for things like stand-up comedians and musicians to do. So in the same way, I don't think we should take away microwavable meals to create jobs for chefs. To me, like, oftentimes, like a quick song generated on Suno is the equivalent of like a microwavable meal. It's not going to be the most delicious thing you ever ate, but it might accomplish what you need at the moment. But it doesn't necessarily mean you never want to eat fine cuisine if you have access to it, if you have the resources to purchase it. Like if I had the money to eat at Morton's every day, I might just do that, or like a high quality restaurant on a daily basis, or have a personal chef. That still would be preferable. But on the tightest times of my life, I survived off bricks and bricks of ramen at like pennies per pack. So oftentimes when I see a lot of this, when I see people complain about barriers to entry and how it may affect their income, at the end of the day, those barriers to entry also increase the access to people with lower income to a lot of things, whether it is food, whether it is music, whether it is, movies. It's a very similar story with movies, and with how things like that. So my point is, like, there's multiple sides of the story, but when it comes to like Puerto Rico Song, it is a sign that an AI song can be something that people enjoy together and en masse. And again, I don't think the Puerto Rico Song, like, it's the first time I actually do kind of enjoy listening to it. But if I didn't watch the TikToks, like, if I had just heard that song, I probably wouldn't have enjoyed it as much if I hadn't seen so many different people take so many fun takes on the song. And I can think of many actual, like, human-made songs where that's the same case, where I probably wouldn't have enjoyed the song as much listening to it's for itself. But so many sort of happy memories of those, like, different videos and just those happy moments of people just sort of lip syncing to the song are so imbued in me that it, like, this is just sort of like this call and effect, this sort of like happy feeling like it's triggered the minute I hear the song. That does make that a song that I want to listen to in the mix of other songs. But it's like but again, when you think about the number of AI songs that are out there. I mean, the only other AI song I can think of that went big was really for the wrong reasons. And that was like basically I think the song called like We Are Charlie Kirk that was really big among conservatives who didn't know it was AI. I think was marketed as not AI or just not really like, it was purposely just a cash grab to grab cash from conservatives in that moment. As a lot of things, can be sometimes in politics, where people just basically see, hey, there's a moment, and they'll go quickly generate a T-shirt to get people to fork over some cash over, feelings that they had or the sensitivity of a moment, which is sort of insensitive in itself. But those are my thoughts on all that. Hopefully you guys, take that for what it is. My opinion doesn't change the world, doesn't change how you feel, doesn't mean you have to feel differently than you do before you listen to it. But hopefully it's an opinion that you can digest and, take it for what it is. I'll see you all later. Again, my name is Alex Merced, alexmerced.com if you want to find out all the things. If you haven't subscribed to this podcast feed, do subscribe, leave review on iTunes, all that good stuff. It definitely helps make sure that other people can discover the podcast too. But otherwise, have a great day and enjoy.